Yo, 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 what is up? Welcome back to Just a Guy on My Lunch Break. My name is Corey. I will be your host today. Before we get started, if you've watched a couple of the videos, but you've not yet subscribed to the channel, I would appreciate it if you would do that. We just crested 600 subscribers yesterday, and I have no one to thank for that but you guys. Well, and myself for doing the videos every day, but you guys. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. Yeah, last night was, or yesterday and last night was tough for a couple of different reasons. So I still did the 15 grams of kratom. Good news is that aspect of, I've been doing that, I guess, 6 days or so now that I've been back on, like, 3 doses per day, down around the 15 to 17 gram era or area. Before that, for almost 2 months, I was doing, I was probably taking sometimes 30, 40 grams per day. I cringe to think that it could possibly be even more than that on some days where I went a little heavier. But, so it took me a few days to kind of settle in to, just the 3 doses a day and getting it under 20 grams like that. But as of last night, that's kind of starting to settle a little bit. As long as I take couple of smaller doses, like a couple of capsules here every few hours when I wake up, I'm able to kind of sleep through the night okay. So not really any big issues there. I had some concerns yesterday. This is a little bit off of topic, but it's, this is where my headspace has been. I have a 7-month-old at home, and so a couple of days ago, one of the infants that is in his class actually was required to stay home one day. We later learned from one of the teachers that child has RSV, which, if you don't know what that is, I'm not exactly sure what it stands for, but it's a respiratory condition, and it can normally is typically something that people bounce back from, usually not a big deal, but there are one-offs where it ends up progressing into something way more serious, especially young infants that aren't mobile yet, and cannot walk and run and all that stuff. A lot of times can be at a higher risk for really, getting beat down by a condition like RSV. So we were told that a baby in my son's infant class was diagnosed with RSV. That scared the shit out of us, obviously. To the point where I called my wife and was like, why don't you just take the rest of the day off and go get the baby? She didn't take the rest of the day off, but she did go and get him kind of early. He's been okay as far as that. But then yesterday, there's this app that is used. It's called the ProCare app, and whether it be the director or just one of the teachers from the infant classroom where my son is, they'll send messages throughout the day kind of updating how his mood is, how his eating habits are, how his bowel movements, and how many diapers they've changed. They really go hard in the paint on explaining to you how his day's been, just because when people have young babies like that, parents, they get really concerned and they want to know this stuff. So we get a message that one of the teachers in there got sick and had gone home. So there's going to be another teacher to come in with them in the afternoon. And so my wife sent a message back to the director, the one who sent out that message, and like, is she okay? Blah blah blah, whatever. She said, well, I can't tell you much, but it's stomach related. She went home. Okay, fine. So we think he's good from RSV because he hasn't been exposed to that kid that was diagnosed with RSV. River hasn't been exposed to him, in probably a good 6 to 8 days at this point, right? Because that kid's been out of school and he's actually in the hospital at this point. So prayers go out to his family and him for that. But So we dodged the RSV bullet. We felt like we were like, well, if he had something like that, he would have already started showing symptoms, because though I looked it up, those symptoms for something like RSV typically arise within like 4 to 6 days after exposure to the illness, right? Well, we're a good 7 days out by this point, so we're like, okay, he's probably good. Well, we get that message about the teacher going home with stomach issues, and my wife picks up my son yesterday afternoon. She gets home with him, gets him in, pulls into the garage, gets him out of his car seat, and as soon as she gets him out of his car seat and is holding him by his stomach, he projectile vomits all over the garage, bleh, everywhere. And we were like, I wasn't there at the time, but of course my wife was like, oh my God, they literally threw up his whole bottle that he had eaten earlier. Now, this is not out of the ordinary for all of you out there who have children and are familiar with infants. It's not completely unheard of or out of the ordinary for an infant to throw up their bottle. This can happen for many reasons. Maybe they drink too fast. Maybe they drink too much. Maybe they're taking in some air, too much air from the nipple, and then they don't get burped properly. And then sometimes they'll spit up their food as a result of those things. So, and my son the same. There's been times where he's done this. So of course, when this first happened, it wasn't like, a huge deal. All right, we didn't think much of it. Although, after he was home for about an hour, and my wife tried to feed him again, and then he threw up again. Okay? By this point, she was like, okay, let me just not feed him for a little bit, kind of see where we're at with it. And from that point on, from about 4 o'clock on throughout the rest of the evening and the night, this poor kid, at least once an hour, he was getting up and doing this number right here, and at this point, he's already thrown everything up, right? There's nothing else coming out except maybe a little bit of like yellow bile, like stomach acid at this point, right? Because he hasn't eaten any food. He hasn't been able to keep any food down, and he's thrown up what he has eaten. So it's one of those things where it's at this point he's just mainly dry heaving. But it is freaking heartbreaking to see your little 7-month-old, sitting there doing this number. And so he did that throughout the rest of the night. And I'm talking about from the time I got home at about 5:30 until the time we went to bed at about 10 o'clock. He did that, spit up, whether it's bile and there was a couple of times where he did but nothing came up. He did that probably a total of 6 to 7 times in that 4 to 5 hour period. So by this point, we're obviously getting pretty concerned. My sister-in-law is actually this is my wife's brother's wife. If that's not confusing for you. She's actually a neonatal nurse, or that's what she did for a career. She's a stay-at-home mom now, but she has very, very, very extended knowledge regarding infants, babies, right? So we call her, we're like, hey, this is what's happening, blah, 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 blah. She asks a bunch of questions, gives us a few tips, says don't feed him for a little while. You might want to go get him some Pedialyte so that he can make sure he's hydrated, because when they're throwing up, they can get dehydrated. If they get to a certain level of dehydration at that age, it can become serious, and you have to take them to the doctor, or the hospital, rather. And so we were like, oh my God, of course. So I burst ass up the Food Lion to get some Pedialyte. It has to be the clear kind. So I go do that, come back. By this point, my wife had put in a call to our pediatrician, and there's an on-call nurse that will call you back. So by this time, the nurse calls back, says that it's the time of the year for this sort of thing. There's a stomach bug going around. It's not a big deal. Said that he'll probably do that over the next few hours. He might do it on through the night a few times as well. At the latest, maybe in the morning. It's like a 12 to 16 hour sort of thing usually. She said if by mid-afternoon tomorrow he hasn't stopped and he's still doing the dry heaving and can't keep food down and stuff like that, maybe you want to reach out, and call the doctor. Try to keep him upright. Don't feed him milk because that's too heavy for his stomach. You know, do the bottle with Pedialyte and all that stuff. So we did. He slept most of the night. Got up first thing this morning. As soon as my wife picked him up out of the bed, and I hear it hit the hardwood floor. I was like, oh, no. You know, so he had that whole moment. And so to make a long story short, I go to give him a kiss bye this morning. He throws up all over my shirt. So I have to run in, and I'm already, you know, kind of running a little bit late. So I have to run in, like, take my shirt off, like, throw it in the hamper. Okay, what else do I have that goes with this? You know, so I throw this shirt on and this vest, and I, you know, put an outfit together. Running out the door, I'm emailing my work at the same time. Hey, I might be 10 minutes late. I got thrown up on by my infant, which, you know, my work's really cool, so it's not like it's a big deal. But, yeah, had that kind of morning. Got into my car because I was, you know, trying to haul ass out the door. And when I make my morning coffee, my wife and I have this thing where we put a little bit of whipped cream, just a little tiny bit of whipped cream on the top. You know, kind of sweetens those first couple of little sips you take of it. And when you put the hot coffee in there and then you put the whipped cream on top, if you then go and immediately put the cap on like this, it melts the whipped cream. It's pointless. The whipped cream's pointless. It melts the whipped cream. You don't ever get to taste the whipped cream. So I always put my whipped cream in there, and then I do this number for a couple of minutes. You know, getting the whipped cream out. It's just a, you know, idiotic little nuance that I have, right? So I'm doing that, and I got my lunch bag, and I run out to the car. I'm in the garage, and I don't have my top on my coffee yet. So I throw my bag in the car, and when I lean over to throw my bag on the car, I'm just not thinking because I'm kind of flustered. I'm running late. My son's sick, you know, been a long night, and a even longer morning, it seems like. And I spill coffee in my car, on my seat. I'm like, fuck! You know? Literally, that's what I said. And so, as you can see, I'm sitting on a towel right now because I actually spilled coffee in my seats this morning. Run back into the house, grab a towel. I'm like, oh, fuck. And my wife's like, what happened? I'm like, I spilled coffee in my car. I'm sorry, honey. I'm like, it's fine, you know. And so yeah, it was a good morning. It was excellent. Freaking loved it, man. But hey, all that's done, all that's in the past. If you got absolutely zero enjoyment out of that story, I told it anyway. So anyway, yeah, look, this park that I'm at, right? So about a week and a half ago when I was here, I was talking to my wife and I had my earbud in my ear. It was right after I did my video with you guys. Right after I finished my video every day, give her a call real quick. You know, I talk to her throughout the rest of my lunch break before I go back into work. And all of a sudden I hear, pow, 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 and I'm like, what is that? And it was so loud that my wife, who I was on the phone with, could hear through my earbud. She was like, is that gunshots? Now listen, where I work, the city itself, I'm not going to name the city. The city itself is a nice, quaint little town. It's like furniture capital, you know, it's a nice little place. But any city, right? Any city has its questionable spots, okay? And the city that I'm from, or it's not where I'm from, but it's where I work, is no different. And this particular area where this little disc golf course is, where I sit every day, it's the immediate area, like the actual neighborhood that I'm in. It's actually pretty nice. There are nice houses around here. You can tell, you know, middle to kind of upper class people. But you drive out of this neighborhood, it's like, whoa, straight out of this neighborhood, straight into the ghetto, basically. So a lot of the surrounding area in this particular city, in this particular part of the city, is somewhat questionable. And my wife knows this. I know this. So I'm sitting there talking to her on the phone. She hears that. She's like, is that gunshots? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. You know? And we kind of sit there for a couple more seconds. And then again, all of a sudden, pow, 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 pow. It was like, oh shit. She was like, get out of there. It was like a freaking action movie. I literally run up the hill, and she can hear me like breathing, like hightailing it up the hill, because it sounded like it was right down the way, you know? So I run up here, get in the car. It was almost time for me to go back to work anyway. And after hearing that, I was like, I'm getting the shit up out of here, right? So I put my car in drive, you know, get out of the park, go back to work, whatever. And this was something, it was loud enough to where I actually looked it up when I got back to work. You know, I tried to look online and see, was there like a shooting or something that happened today? Never found anything. It's like it never happened. But this was not, absolutely was not a car backfiring. This was, I absolutely know what gunshot sounds like. This was absolutely gunshots, okay? And it was absolutely not that far away from where I was. It almost sounded like it was on the other side of this tuft of woods that's right behind me here. Well, you know, that was about a week and a half ago. Didn't think much about it. Well, 2 days ago, on Monday, I get out, I'm talking to my wife, got my earbud in, and I walk down to this, you know, one of these holes. You know, if you ever play disc golf, you know, where it's got the basket and the chains that people throw the disc in. Well, there's one behind me down the hill back here. And, you know, typically you'll see somebody every once in a while out here playing, but more times than not, there's nobody out here playing when I'm here specifically. So I walk down there, you know, near where the creek is. It's got a pretty, you know, like creek that runs through the area there. And so I'll walk down there and just kind of, you know, be in nature and talk to my wife, whatever. I walked back there the other day and I'm like, is that a book bag? A full-size pink book bag lying in the middle of the creek? Like, that's odd as shit, you know? And I walk down there and I, you know, get a closer look and I'm like, that's not empty. It's full of something, you know? I mean, it's like, you know, puffed up. This is like a school book backpack, you would call it. The kind that you put on your shoulders and, you know, I'm like, that's odd. Right in the middle of the creek. I mean, it's on a rock, but literally the rock is right in the middle of the creek, and there's water like rushing and stuff all around it. I'm like, this is really strange. And so the you know, my curiosity gets the best of me, and I walk over there and I pick the bag up, and you know, I'm like this with it because it's, you know, I wasn't about to like stick my hand in the bag, because there ain't no way I'm gonna stick my hand in there and like get stabbed by a dirty heroin needle or something, you know. So I was very cautious, but I picked the bag up and I unzipped it and I kind of pried it apart like that a little bit. It's like, you know, it was a pretty intense moment. I'm like, please don't let me find like a severed head in here or something, please. And it was just, it was somebody's clothes, and there was a pair of shoes. But it's been 3 days. It's still there. I just saw it like 10 minutes ago before I started the video. I was like, what the hell is this doing back there? And, you know, and then I told my wife about it, and my wife is such a, I'm telling you, we watch too many murder shows, because I watch like the ID channel and all this. I don't know why, I'm just really into stuff like that, you know, these murder crime scene investigation sort of shows. I just find them fascinating, which is quite ironic because I'm such a passive, like I'm not a violent person at all. Like I could never imagine taking someone else's life or something unless I was forced into doing so, obviously, just to protect my family or something like that. But outside of that, I'm not a violent person. So my wife always makes fun of me, like, why do you always like to watch these murder shows? They're so depressing, you know, these people murder for hire on their spouses and all this other stuff. And you know, of course I joke with her sometimes, like, you know, maybe I'm getting some ideas, you know. But I guess it's because we watch too many of those, and she's also kind of an anxious sort of person. And when I told her I picked the bag up, she was like, what if that's related to the gunshots we heard the other day? Which, I mean, could be. I'm not saying that it's not, but I did kind of walk around the general area and look around and stuff. I didn't see, I didn't see a dead body anywhere. I'm not smelling anything. I'm not smelling a decaying body. So I'm like, I don't think it is. But it's odd because there's a full book bag over there with clothes and shoes and stuff in it. And it's just weird how and why did this just get left out here? And if it's like a homeless or an indigent person, like, wouldn't you want this stuff? You know, this is a nice book bag, still put together. It's got shoes in it. Don't you need your shoes? Don't you need your coat or your clothes or whatever's in it? And of course my wife is like, she had to say, I just hope that like wasn't involved with that gunshot and somebody got murdered and then they find your fingerprints on it. I was like, damn. Well, that would be crazy, right? You know, somebody turns up dead down the river a little bit, and then all of a sudden they find this bag and then they run the prints. And I mean, you know, I got a couple of, you know, little misdemeanor type charges from when I was younger, so I'm sure my prints are on file, you know, with the government. But I was like, no, there's no way. I mean, I've met the neighbors here. There's several houses right around me. I've met people that live right here when I was out here walking around. I've pet their dogs. You know, people see me parking here every day, and you know, I'm just sitting here doing a video. So obviously I don't foresee that being an issue. But I just thought it was fun. I just thought it was funny that my wife said that. It's like, really? I mean, you're afraid I'm like gonna go down for murder or something? But anyway, I live kind of an interesting life, guys. At Graham Reeves 6244 says, thanks for the videos. I have learned some things watching you. I'm also 47 years old. 1976, baby. Year of the Dragon. Let's go. Somebody told me to look up the Year of the Dragon. There were some interesting things about that year. I have not done that yet. Someone wants to take the liberty to look up the Year of the Dragon, 1976. Let me know what kind of person I am based on that. Put it in the comments. I'd love to see it. I'm also 47 and in very good physical condition and in the process of quitting kratom, primarily because of the negative effects on libido and, I believe, decrease in testosterone. Yes and yes, my friend. Because of tolerance, I have managed to get up to a high daily dose of 70 grams, dosing 3 times per day, 2 doses at 25 grams in the morning, and then 20 grams dose in the evening. I suffer from chronic pain due to old injuries, and this substance has been a miracle pain management. However, it has been at the expense of my libido and therefore not worth it anymore. I'm doing an aggressive taper over the course of 5 days, and today is the end of my day 2 with 0 issues so far. Wish me luck on the rest of it. Also, I have found the best way to accurately measure these doses is to buy powder and use a $20 digital kitchen scale from Walmart that measures in grams. Put the glass on the scale, tear it out, T-A-R-E, it out, and add the exact amount of powder I need. Thanks again for the informative content. Graham, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the comment. I really, really appreciate it. I live where you're talking. Everything you said right here, I live there, bro. You know, we've talked endlessly on here about regular kratom use and its negative impact on libido and your ability to maintain an erection, the ability to climax, all of those things. And bro, I can only imagine. You said you got up to dosing 70 grams per day. That's pretty substantial. Like I said a couple of months ago, I'm pretty sure I was up to, on some days, at least 30, maybe 40 grams some days. I don't think I usually went much over that, if at all. Like I said, I was never measuring it. But I think I was probably doing maybe at least 8 grams or more per dose, because I was doing like a heaping, teaspoon of it. And then there was times I was doing 6 of those a day. So, you can do the math. I mean, there were definitely times where I did at least 40, I'm sure. And bro, when I got up to that amount, that was pretty significantly high for me. So when I got up to that amount, that's when I really started noticing, the decrease in sensitivity, the decrease in testosterone, you can't even call the libido a decrease. It's like it completely just blacks out your libido. I felt absolute 0 level of horniness. None whatsoever. And that's a very awkward, strange feeling for somebody like me, because I've always had a pretty high testosterone, pretty high sex drive as well. And so to be at a point in my life where, it's almost non-existent, that's very disconcerting. Yeah, good luck on your aggressive taper, bro. As far as the best way to accurately measure it in the digital scale, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good move. A lot of people have said that. And I think it's just all about preference. For me, what I do is, and I've shared this before, I'll take the capsules, and the capsules that I get are 500 milligrams a piece. So each capsule is a half of a gram, right? And I don't like to take the gelatin caps that the kratom comes in, because I know that is not necessarily good for your gut. Kratom is already not necessarily good for your gut, so I don't want to add to that detriment by adding in the gelatin cap. So what I do is I pop the gelatin cap open, dump it into my orange juice, and I'll just do as many caps as I need to, and that way I'll know exactly how much I'm taking, and I don't have to do the gelatin caps, right? So, but yeah, either way, whatever works. I will say it does take me a little bit longer to take my kratom, because I have to sit there and pop each individual cap open. But as I'm decreasing the amount that I'm taking every dose, it's getting a little quicker and quicker and quicker, right? Because I'm decreasing the amount of caps that I'm using. At James-WC5YP, Corey, my son just dropped a bomb on me that he has been using kratom about 15 grams per day. I have talked with him and will give him all of my support and your channel, of course. I'm on day 5 and am so happy and thankful for your compassion and help. James. Wow. To read something like that is very, very humbling, James. Just the thought of that people think of me in that way is very, very humbling. And I just want to say that that's hard to know what to say. You're right, that is a bomb. I have a lot of concern for my children, obviously. And we all love our children more than we love ourselves, right? If we're being honest. And, that's a big deal. Learning something like that your child is taking something that could potentially be harmful to them either now or in the future. Now, I will say 15 grams per day, that's not that excessive. That's about what I'm at this point. But, he's obviously probably a younger man, and you just hate to see somebody get into that habit, And I've always said, a lot of us as adults, we've been on something for so long, whether it's an opioid or something else. A lot of us have just kind of accepted, because it's so much of a hassle and it's so much of a life hack and life fuck to just uproot everything and completely change what you've been used to doing for all of your adult life, right? And so a lot of us just settle. We're like, well, this is the least detrimental thing I can do. Kratom's not that bad, and it's legal, and I'm not getting the DUIs, and this and that. I'm not losing my job because of it, all this. So people just kind of find it as the lesser of all of the other evils, and it still allows them to be able to have that mood lift, the high, euphoria, all that stuff. And so we just kind of resign ourselves to it, and we're like, well, I'm older. Too late to freaking change it, right? We're older. But when you hear a young person, and if a young person ever asked me, and if a young person, especially who had never really been addicted to anything, asked me if they should take it, I would never suggest for somebody that age and somebody young like that, especially my own child, or anybody else's child for that matter, to start taking something like that. I wouldn't. I would actually encourage them not to, even as a current user of it. I know better, you know, and I know what kind of negative consequences mentally and emotionally that you can potentially get from dosing on something like Kratom all the time. So I hate to hear that about your son. I will absolutely support him if he comes on the channel, ask a question. We'll talk about it on here. Everyone else can jump in and support him, support you. We're more than glad to do that, man. So I appreciate you being willing to put that into my hands. That really means a lot. So I love you guys. I gotta go. Sorry I rambled on about a bunch of crazy shit this morning, but I just had that kind of day, that kind of week, and I lead kind of an interesting life. So I've had a lot of people say, hey man, I just listen to you in the background when I'm doing other shit for motivation, so I like it when you ramble. I've had a lot of people tell me that. So that was for you. All right, I gotta go. Love you guys. Have a great afternoon. Peace.